Hello, everybody. Welcome to already the third webinar of the CYSSME project. My name is Wim Stoffelen from LSEC and accompanied today by Thomas Stubbing from Vienna, Austria, if I'm correct, Thomas. And both of us are representing the CYSSME project today. Before I hand it over to Thomas for the topic of today, baseline security. Let's do a short recap on the CYSSME project. So CYSSME stands for cybersecurity for SMEs. So it's a project that has received funding from the European Commission through the Digital Europe program, which basically means that for the next 3 years we have been granted the authority and the means to support small and medium-sized enterprises, but also micro enterprises in becoming more cyber secure. So how do we do that? Basically through short 3 to maximum 6 months interventions where we help the SME to get a view on their cyber security risk profile, their level of maturity, help them make decisions and prioritizing some of the measures that they could take to increase their cybersecurity maturity, and from there on also support them with individual mentoring and technology guidance during the implementation. So one of the challenges here, Thomas, you can move to the next slide, please. So one of the challenges there that we identified at the beginning of the project and really already before we started the project is the term cybersecurity maturity, because in itself, it's a little bit of a hollow definition. What is cybersecurity maturity? How do you measure it? How do you measure it in such a way that it creates valuable outputs for the individual SME that they can work on to improve their cybersecurity maturity? I think you're all familiar with the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Thomas, I'm speaking on your behalf, but I think you would be itching to add another quote, which would say, if you don't know where you are now, it doesn't really matter which road you take. So this brings us off the topic of today. I think Thomas has done a really good job in creating a cybersecurity maturity assessment specifically for SMEs, but also considering the different types of SMEs, different sizes of SMEs, different sectors where they are active in. And all based, if I'm correct, Thomas, on the topic of today, baseline security.
Yes, Wim, thank you very much for the introduction. And yes, that's exactly the topic for today, baseline security. And I would add another quote to say every journey begins with the first step. So it is important to start a journey, to take the first steps. And today we're going to focus on the question, what is actually baseline security and why does it matter? Why is it important? We are also going to look at how can we actually approach this, especially for small and medium-sized businesses, and how can CYSSME actually support you in achieving this cyber readiness and identify your opportunities for improvement. And beyond, last but not least, we are all on a permanent improvement journey. And this is what we're going to look at today. So what is baseline security? There is a definition, there is a definition by the NIST Computer Security Resource Center, which says baseline security is a set of controls that are applicable to information or information systems to meet legal, regulatory, or policy requirements, as well as addressing protection needs for the purpose of managing risks. So we have two aspects here. We have, of course, the legal and regulatory side, which is represented by European legislation like the NIS2 directive, but also DORA for those organizations in the financial sector, which require organizations to have some sort of minimum standards in place. And the other aspect, of course, is to manage the risks, to protect against adversaries, because in the end, everybody wants to conduct their business and not being hacked or being put out of business because systems are not working anymore. So this is what it's about. It's about achieving a status of having minimum security standards in place, which put us in the position to withstand at least the normal attack surface that we have. And the main difference to a risk-based security is that baseline security is really something where you do not need to do a specific risk assessment before, because things like to use antivirus or to use a firewall or to have an incident management process in place, those are things where you don't really need a risk assessment. It's just something that must be there. Yeah, it's a matter of course. So this is what baseline security is about. It's a matter of course. It's something that must be there no matter what, and we should not really discuss about the necessity of this. So, and why is it important? Of course, we all know that the attack surface becomes more prevalent every month, every year. Also with regards to small and medium businesses, maybe I could say especially with regards to SMEs, it's simply wrong assumption to think I'm too small, I'm not interesting. No, the attackers, the adversaries, they always go after the most easy target. And very often those easy targets are the SMEs because they are not ready, because their cybersecurity posture is not good enough, because they are missing the baseline security. So we see from those statistics here that more than half of the SMEs actually already experienced the cybersecurity breach. The money which is usually lost is significant. We have really high amounts that need to be paid in ransomware, for example. And the ransomware in the end is just the tip of the iceberg, because all the effort that you have to take in order to get your business up and running again after a successful breach is even a multitude of what you may pay as a ransom. So this is a significant threat that businesses are facing. And so what are those threats? ENISA, the European Network and Information Security Agency, has collected the most important threats that we are currently facing, and you see it's the who is who of bad stuff. Malware, data threat, social engineering, disinformation, threats against availability, denial of service attacks. Of course, ransomware is one of the most prominent threats, which is very much also in the news. And last but not least, not to forget, also supply chain attacks. So the adversary sometimes does not come directly to your door, but sometimes they come via the suppliers. And PwC has made also a survey amongst businesses, and they actually confirm very well the data from ENISA. So also this digital trust report really points out that those threats like ransomware, like attacks against cloud, like third-party breaches, etc., denial of service attacks, those are really the things that are going on and businesses feel. So that's the attacker perspective. That's the threat surface that we see. And now, on the other hand, we have a huge problem. And the problem is, in order to have a successful attack, the attacker needs to find a vulnerability a space where they can hack in successfully. And unfortunately, very often this is available. We see here a listing of reasons for successful attacks that were presented by Microsoft on the last RSA conference last year. And we see here that really baseline security things are missing, like not having an effective vulnerability and patch management program in place, like not having immutable recent backups in place, like not using, for example, multi-factor authentication, especially for high privileged accounts, or using Active Directory security recommended practices, and so on. So if we look at this list, we must not be surprised that so many attacks are successful in the end. So this is really where we need to move away from, and this statistic needs to significantly change in order to have organizations be more secure.
Yeah, Thomas, maybe just adding to that last slide. For some of you listening in, you may think, is this baseline security? Because I don't really understand what it says. Yes, it is, as Thomas mentioned. Some of you may be working with managed service providers, with IT providers that take care of your IT. You don't need to know everything in depth, which is on this list. But if not you, then you need to make sure that the provider that you're working with is taking these measures seriously, because you can outsource your IT, but you cannot outsource your responsibility. Right, Thomas?
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Wim. And just to let you know, I mean, this is a statistic provided by Microsoft, and they use the techie language. I will come back later with more understandable language for baseline security requirements to make that also more clear. Yeah, this problematic has also been recognized by the lawmakers. For example, the European Commission, but also many national lawmakers and regulators. And they all have put in place laws and regulations that are there to increase baseline security in organizations. The NIST directive is only one example, but of course it's one of the most prominent examples. And you see here one quote out of NIST 2, and this stresses that it needs to be approached with an all hazards approach to protect network and information systems from incidents, and that shall include at least basic cyber hygiene practices and cybersecurity training. So this is what we are focusing on, and this is and I want to stress that this is not only relevant for organizations which are directly subject to NIST 2. Some of you may say, okay, I'm not on the list of NIST 2, but with a very high probability, you are a supplier of one of the NIST 2 organizations, and then you are affected indirectly, because those NIST 2 organizations must make sure that also all of their suppliers have baseline security in place. So it is actually a legal requirement, and you can expect that someone will ask you for that in the near future. So what is it about? And I promise to have a more, let's say, understandable overview on cybersecurity requirements that we count as baseline security. You may have heard of the three main security goals: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So this is what we want to achieve with our systems and our data. And how can we achieve that? For confidentiality, it must be at least be assured that logical access control is in place, so everybody can only access those systems and data that they need for doing their job. The so-called need to know, need to do principle. Of course, this also applies to physical access, access to server rooms, access to data rooms, etc. What also needs to be in place, of course, is a secure authentication, and the absolute minimum here is to have secure passwords, to have different passwords on every system, to change passwords whenever there is, whenever you think there has been a breach. But of course, much better would be to implement multi-factor authentication as far as possible, because this is a really good improvement of security to have multi-factor authentication. Encryption, of course, is important, especially for sensitive data, data at rest, meaning data which is stored in your on your computers, but also data in transit, meaning data that is transmitted from one place to the other place via email, via cloud, etc. So encryption, very important. Integrity means we need to have an overview of which systems we're actually working with and in which status these systems are. To have them in a secure state, we need to have a good documentation, because if we don't know which systems we have, then we are not able to protect them adequately. Logging and monitoring, very important, because we always have to assume breach, so we cannot be sure that we will not be breached. So we need to be able to identify breaches, and if we identify breaches, to react. And in order to have this, we need logging, we need monitoring, and we need to be able, in the case of the cases that a breach has happened, to have the right forensic capabilities in order to follow up. Now you might say, I'm a small organization, how can I have these forensic experts? It's not necessary that you have all of this yourself. You can work with partners, you can work with incident retainers of specialized organizations. That does not cost a fortune, but gives you access to those expert resources when you need them, and only then. With regards to availability, of course, this is one of the key security goals. If the systems are not available, then we cannot do business. So we need to have adequate resilience strategy and contingency plans in place, meaning we need to know what to do in case of an incident or a disaster. Yeah, it's too late to think about that when it happens. You need to be prepared, and you need to test these things upfront, because that improves your chances of quick recovery significantly. Of course, backups are an absolute must. It must be assured that you have up-to-date backups, but it must be also assured that you are able to restore them. And this has to be tested. Yeah, so backup and recovery tests are an absolute must in baseline security, because if that does not happen, then the chances are very big that you have huge problems to recover. Of course, a lot of technical protective measures that are not separately listed here I already mentioned: antivirus, firewall, etc. Those are those basic technology, security technologies that simply need to be there and must be, of course, maintained. Vulnerability and patch management, super important. One of the biggest problems are outdated systems, because outdated systems are the #1 source for attackers to come in. And just to give you an idea, 90% of all successful penetrations are done on vulnerabilities for which a patch already existed since 3 months or more. What does that tell you? That tells you that many organizations do not at least quarterly update their systems, because otherwise those old vulnerabilities wouldn't be accessible anymore. but the reality shows a different picture. And this is really something that can be changed quite easily. Yeah, it simply needs to be done. So security checks and tests, yeah, you should also test your security measures. You should do vulnerability scans. You can make penetration tests on your outside systems. It's always good to have measures in place, but it's also good to test whether they are really working. Some other things that need to be mentioned here, policies, trainings, and responsibilities. Yes, without a written policy, it's very hard to have a structured approach to security, also with regards to training. If your staff does not understand what they need to do, then they will probably not be aware, they will not identify social engineering, and they will click on that link that leads you into the crypto locker potentially. And responsibilities, last but not least, you know, if nobody's responsible, then nothing will happen. Does it mean you need to have a full-fledged CISO? Maybe not. If you're just a small organization, then maybe someone can do that as a side job. You can even outsource that if you don't have the resources. But the minimum is that that the management of the organization defines the security goals, assigns the responsibilities, and checks that those responsibilities are actually followed and executed. And one of the key responsibilities is to make sure that baseline security is in place.
So one question, Thomas, if I may.
Sure.
Because I know that you have experience both in the large enterprise environment where you headed the security department, but as well as extensive experience the last couple of years within the SME environments as well. So from your experience, and this is the view that we get on it, is that a lot of these items that are mentioned, as you just mentioned yourself before, are with IT providers, right? So SMEs will work with IT providers. I think for you as an enterprise organization, it's a little bit easier to negotiate with your managed service provider or IT provider on what's covered. And for an SME, sometimes it may be that you just need to take the one size fits all offer that's being provided to you. What's your experience there, and what would you advise the audience in how to relate to their IT service provider or the managed service provider?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually goes hand in hand with my next slide. There is orientation available, and every manager of an organization, every managing director, even of a small or medium organization, should be aware of the most important standards which are available. That doesn't mean that you need to know them by heart or fully understand the last word that is written in there. But you need to understand what are the key topics that need to be covered. Because if you go into discussion with IT service providers, you must come up with a requirements list. And this requirements list can be derived from such standards that I have listed here, starting with Cyber Fundamentals, which is very popular in Belgium, or Cyber Essentials coming from UK, or in Austria we have the Cyber Risk Rating Scheme. Those are all useful standards that can be used to create your own requirement list. And with this requirement list, you can go to your service provider. So it's always good to be prepared, because otherwise you just have to take what they offer you. Yeah. So at least this kind of basic understanding of the requirements is very important. I also need to stress here that, of course, the listed standards, some of them significantly differ in scope and complexity. So, for example, the NIST SP 800 or also the ISO 27000 family is quite comprehensive and might be too much for an SME. if you're a larger organizations, they are fine. If you're a smaller one, then you might go for one of the smaller standards like the Cyber Risk Rating Scheme or the Cyber Essentials. And also the Cyber Fundamentals are available in different levels, from basic to more advanced levels. So pick the one which is right for you in size and scope, but pick one. That's the message here. So what we have done in CYSSME is actually we have used those standards and distilled out the most important requirements that we think are really essential. We came up with a standard questionnaire of 25 questions, 25 requirement areas. So if you come to our onboarding, if you come to our assessment, you will be actually guided through this questionnaire, depending on your maturity level. So if you have, let's say, already some medium or more advanced maturity, then you will be going through these 25 standard questions, and most probably you will be already able to understand those requirements and answer them accordingly. If you are more on the beginner side, which is absolutely fine, then you will go through a reduced set of questions, which are even more basic. So super basic, yeah, let's call them super basic. It's just 13 questions, and that will be the ones that you have to answer in this case. If you do not even know what a firewall or antivirus is, then you don't have to answer any questions, and our experts will help you anyway. But that's a special path. Let's assume most of you will know about those super basic things. So this is the way that our security assessment is structured. It looks like this. You see a screenshot here. It's really easy to go through that. It's yes, no, partly, or even don't know if you cannot answer one of those questions. So you will click through these 25 questions, and then in the end you will get a nice assessment result, which shows your maturity level. It shows in the different dimensions: organizational security, detection response, backup recovery, network security, data security, system security, and identity and access management. And of course, this can help you already to identify opportunities for improvement. Of course, also our CYSSME partners will pick up on that. We have partners for virtually every area that you see here, and wherever you may have any deficiencies, we will have the right partner for you that can support you on improving that. And of course, you can repeat this, and that's also the idea. So you do an initial assessment in the beginning. We together identify your improvement areas. We do some interventions, as we already mentioned, 3 to 6 months typically. And after this time, you will probably, hopefully, have significantly improved. And then you can run through the assessment a second time, and then you will get, of course, an improved maturity score. Here in the example, the test organization had a 37% in the beginning, and after the interventions, 74% maturity level, which is a huge improvement in your cybersecurity posture. So this is actually what we want to achieve with CYSSME, and for this we have created the project. So just to summarize, why should you use it? Why should you use CYSSME? Why should you use our assessment tool and all our mentoring and support afterwards? First of all, it's easy. It's really low barrier. You do not need to be an expert. And if you really struggle, even though it's structured as a quite easy assessment tool, then you can get mentor support as well to guide you through the assessment. We have we have different questionnaires for different maturity levels. It is a quantification, so we can do benchmarking. we can identify the opportunities for improvement, and we can measure the improvements over time. All of this is, of course, integrated with our onboarding process. We can also offer additional technical scans to identify potential weak spots in your infrastructure to really get the full picture. There will be, of course, a follow-up. You will get support by the mentor. This is all free, by the way. So it's absolutely no risk for you to do that and to go through that. And last but not least, if you go through these improvement steps and hopefully get a good security posture afterwards, then you're already prepared for a later certification or a label like the Cyber Trust Europe label, which we also offer in the CYSSME project, which is very closely aligned to our requirements catalog and our questions. So if you have a good security score in the assessment, then you will be probably already eligible for one of these valuable trust labels that can be used in your supply chain, that can be used for your regulator, and so on. So this is in a nutshell what I wanted to tell you about baseline security. So Wim, I give back to you with Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, you were one step ahead of me, Thomas, because I already included this slide, but of course you didn't know.
Okay.
So yeah, excellent, Thomas. And once again, Thomas and I have been working together quite extensively over the last half year. And you make it look easy. I think that's the trick. So it should be easy to use by the SME. And the complexity is on the back end. And I know that we've had a lot of discussions to make this happen. And congratulations once again, Thomas, on a great job on the assessment there. I really appreciate it. Every adventure requires a first step, as Thomas already mentioned. So I'll definitely recommend to connect with CYSSME, ask us to connect with you. You can even take the assessment. It's a self-assessment. It will take Thomas about 25 minutes or so, right, to take that assessment, to get a result. And it's up to you whether or not you want to do something with that result. If you want to do something, then we as a project are here to support you with improving that score for after 3 months again. You can connect with us. Maybe next slide, Thomas. Either via one of the partners that you may be connected with already, or directly. That's the last slide, Thomas, on the CYSSME website, or with LSEC, who is leading this project. So this is it from us. Next webinars will be 5 questions to ask your managed service provider. So Thomas, you already felt it coming a little bit based on my questions during today's webinar. We have another activity coming up specifically for e-commerce SME organizations, and are also planning to organize some other activities specifically in the manufacturing and high-tech sectors. So much from us. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, everybody, for listening in, and see you on the next event. Thank you.